Britain is now facing the biggest economic downturn since World War II. The recession is the most severe since the Great Depression of the 1930s and has been brought on by the banking crisis. Since the banking collapse, ordinary people are suffering and being made to pay the cost of bailing out the banks. This is Gary Hollier. He was a computer science research associate at York University who has been made redundant since the banking crisis.
At the moment, I'm supplementing my job seekers allowance with some savings that I got through getting redundancy pay. Also, I'm not living with my partner at the moment because her plans have gone a bit wrong as well, so she's not here. But if I get a job, that will probably change.
The collapse of Northern Rock Bank in September 2007 was the first indication of the coming crisis. For the first time since 1866, there was a run on a British bank as people queued to get their money out. Almost a year after Northern Rock collapsed, the US mortgage providers Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, who provided about half of all US mortgages, some $6 trillion, had to be nationalized. Panic followed. Then 1 week later, Lehman Brothers, a massive US investment bank, collapsed. This was the biggest bankruptcy in US history. For a few days, it appeared as if the whole global financial system was going to collapse also. This was only prevented by a massive injection of government funds. In the US, some $6 trillion has been spent propping up the financial system. Meanwhile, in the UK, the Royal Bank of Scotland, the biggest UK bank, and the Halifax Bank, the biggest mortgage lender, also collapsed and had to be nationalised.
Well, Martin Wolf from the Financial Times said recently that the British government is spending £4 for every £3 it gets in tax take. And so, if that's the case, then one can see that the British state could control its finances by cutting expenditure by 25%. That would be painful, but it is economically possible. Whether it's politically possible is another question.
By the end of 2009, the government had spent £850 billion bailing out the banks. Because of the banking collapse, the government had to borrow vast amounts of money, raising government spending to the highest percent of the gross domestic product since World War II.
If the government did not bail out the banks would have collapsed and the whole capitalist system would have ended, and the government would have to have instituted socialism.
The only way the government can get the money to pay the interest on the debt and start repaying the capital is to increase taxes and cut expenditure.
I am a teacher in a school, and next year we have to reduce our spending by 10%. I've also got friends who've lost their jobs.
One of my flatmates, he graduated from university last year, and he's been looking for work ever since, and he's found it very, very difficult to find anything at all. I think just in terms now of the impact it's had on the availability of jobs, it's had a big impact on not just on working class people, on middle class people broadly.
I suspect that I'm not getting jobs as easily because I achieved a higher rate of pay in my past job, and employers feel they have to match that.
In April 2010, the news reported that there were 8.16 million economically inactive people in the UK. The number of people officially unemployed is now 2.5 million, and the number of people working part-time has fallen by 30,000.
I'm using the website jobs.ac.uk, which is fairly comprehensive for my type of work. There aren't many jobs which aren't advertised on this website, and I get alerts every day.
Some taxes have already been increased. Value-added tax has been increased to 17.5%, and some cutbacks have already been announced. The education budget for universities has been cut by £573 million. Thousands of university teaching jobs are to be axed and courses closed. Student fees will rise and quality of education will go down as class sizes increase.
I think that cutbacks are going to hit universities in at least 3 different ways. One is in loss of senior expertise, a second in loss of diversity of subjects taught, and the third in the loss of all laboratory and practical based aspects of the subject, simply because they are expensive to maintain.
This is Simon Inglett, a student from Sussex University who is part of the Socialist Workers' Party. He got suspended for leading a group of students to occupy a lecture theatre to protest over the cuts.
Since we're being completely ignored really by our management, it means that the only thing that really is there for the community at Sussex is collective action and is action as a community really. And in that case, for students, the best way of putting pressure on management is to mobilize a quite large amount of the campus community.
There's no way out of this crisis without somehow the debt's being dealt with. One way will probably be through conflict within capitalism. Another way is to overthrow capitalism.
Capitalism is a surprisingly new system. The very first factory in England was only built in 1781 in Manchester by Arkwright, and that's a cotton mill. And a cotton mill, the factory system can get going because of Britain's imperial position in the world, that cotton can be sold to the colonies. So we've had just 200 years of this system. Why on earth should we put up with it for 200 days more when the system says to us, says to every man and woman and child in Britain, the banks have lost a fortune in speculation, you pay for it.
The alternatives are to just refuse the sacrifices. If they're voluntary and if they're being enforced upon them, they should resist by striking and uniting across all the barriers that capitalism tries to impose upon them. Because if we fight in a generalised way, they can't pick us off one by one.
We do have very good links with the trade unions in town, with workers that have faced very similar cuts and conditions actually than we have on campus, and we're trying to make those links, and also students can you know, we have less, the weight of life is lesser on us really, so we can help these campaigns with the energy that we can bring in, that people that will have to work 8 hours a day and then take care of a family can't always do. So I think we can inspire.
I think if we're to improve the situation in the future, we need international, global control of our financial services. I believe that this has to be led at a multilateral level by institutions and organisations such as the IMF, the WTO and maybe the World Bank. To achieve this, I think we need serious leadership from the United States, from China or the countries of the EU.
Where does the solution to this crisis lie? The way forward is to bring about radical changes that lead to a move away from capitalism. Although sacrifices are crucial to propping up the system, it is up to us to find a way around them. However, struggles lie ahead. Now that the election is over, it is possible that the new government can lead the way to a brighter future.
It's right there, but soon